So without further ado, I will jump into my all NBA teams for this season. I want to preface this by saying I tried my best to stick towards a center, two forwards, and two guards. I know based on listening to other podcasts and reading other articles that they have finagled the positioning this year in terms of, like, as an example, Jokic and Embiid are allowed to be put as power forwards, even though neither of them have ever played a minute of power forward in their lives. Maybe Jokic played a bit of power forward with the use of Nurkic way back in the day when he was in his second year and averaging 10 points per game off the bench for the Nuggets. They're centers. And so just because you want to be a wimp and get both of those guys on your first team, like, make the hard decisions. We already did with all NHL. I'm ready to do with all NBA. The other thing I would say, it's the other thing I would say is it's harmful to the history of the league, where back in the day, they did have to pick a center, your forwards, and your guards, right? And if back in the day you had a guy, I don't know, this is really far back, but if you had Wilt and Bill Russell, right? Those two are both centers. They are 1 and 2. But if you had been able to fix it, then both of those guys have a ton more first all NBA teams to their name than they do now. And so it feels unfair to the people who have become before that you can now change that rule and reward guys just because you want to take the easy way out in selecting your all NBA teams. And I am not going to do that. So that's been prefaced. Yeah, I know. Oh my God. Give myself a victory lap. Okay. Let's just get right into it, shall we? So with that being said, the first tough cut I had to make is my all NBA first team center is Nikola Jokic. And it ended up not being that difficult because he's also going to be the MVP of this season. 26 points per game, 11 rebounds, 8.5 assists. I've already said on the last pod why he's the MVP and why he's just the nucleus of one of the best offenses and one of the most talented centers we have ever seen at just such a unique size, pace, vision, all those things. So not much more needs to be said. At power forward, Giannis Antetokounmpo, another guy who's putting up very similar numbers to his back-to-back MVP campaigns the last 2 seasons, will not win the MVP because of voter fatigue and because of the great Jokic option that we have. 28 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, really, really fantastic season for him. And yeah, definitely a first team guy.
The Bucks also not having quite the same regular season success as in those two.
Yeah. Small forward, I have Kawhi Leonard. Now this one's a tough one, right? Because he didn't play a ton of games. He just hits that 50 mark right now with a couple of games left in the season. That's what I set it at. I think that's enough to really get him in there because you can't really argue with the production he's had this season. Really, really fantastic stuff from him with 25 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 5 assists. Playmaking is up a little bit and just like a guy who does it so well on both sides of the ball, and
something like 1.5 steals a game too.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, when you're picking like your top 5 guys, when like in games that matter, he's right there because like he is one of the best and you got to value that. Guards. This one was tough. The lock for me, of course, Steph Curry, out of this world season, currently leading the scoring race at 32 points per game. He's shooting 92% from the free throw line, 43% from 3, and 49% from the field. So almost 50, 40, 90 on just ridiculous usage. Not to mention 5.5 rebounds and 5.7 assists. Just like a really, really outstanding season. Obviously not going to be up there in the MVP talks because of the team success, but when it comes to all NBA, this is more of an individual accolade. And so 100% he's right there on that first team. So this is where we maybe get into the controversy, but the 5th player, my shooting guard on the all NBA team, is Luka Doncic. And this might be saving my MVP pick from the beginning of the season. I had Luka, So maybe I'm trying to make myself feel better by giving him the all first team honors, but he definitely has the stats and the production to back it up. 28 points per game, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, like almost a triple double, doing it every night. He runs the offense for Dallas. And yeah, like these are numbers that are just out of this world for a third year player. You got to remember that he's 21. Like it's ridiculous and such a high ceiling going forward. Again, shooting 48% from the field, 35.5% from three. You'd like that to be up a little bit. The free throws are worrisome, 72%. And that could be costly come playoff time. But again, Dallas climbing in the standings makes his case a little bit better now that they're in the 5 seed as opposed to like 8, 9 earlier in the season. And Luka definitely deserves to be there. Don't worry, these other guards are going to get noticed. Second team, center, Joel Embiid. Again, I didn't make him first team because I'm not going with those weird positions. But if Jokic wasn't the MVP, it'd probably be Embiid. He's at 49 games played right now. He's going to hit 50 by the time the season's done with a couple more games left on the schedule. 29 points per game, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, but 1.5 blocks. Like really, really special stuff from him. He's been incredibly dominant on both sides. Not much more needs to be said. This was tough. My 2 forwards, and I wanted to switch things around, but the problem ended up being that just the positioning didn't work out. So I'm going to stick with Julius Randle as one of my forwards on the All NBA second team. And then I have LeBron James as my other. And LeBron is not going to hit that 50 game mark. He's sitting at 43 right now. He'll probably end up at 45, 46, but it's LeBron James. Like he was top 3 in the running for MVP like halfway through the season. He's LeBron James. Like he just has to be there every year. Like 30 years from now, someone's going to look back and go, how is LeBron like the greatest player for 10 years in a row? And he didn't make the All NBA team this season. Like he just has to kind of be there in terms of legacy. And everyone agrees he's your number 1 choice when it's coming playoff time. So why does he not deserve to be there? And so I couldn't put him first team because of the games, but knock him down to second team, still an incredible achievement for him. And he sits there. Julius Randle is going to be a little bit controversial. He's really played his way up. He's going to get the votes because he's a New York player, but 24 points per game, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, pardon me. Really, really special season for a New York Knicks team that has really struggled to generate offense. And he is the guy that has been carrying a very below average team to quite possibly the 4 seed. It probably ends up being the 5 seed. Yeah, really, really impressive stuff from him. The other thing I'll say is he is incredible on defense as well. The stats don't necessarily back that up, but at his size, he moves well laterally and he just gives effort every night. And if you're going to give Russell Westbrook the MVP for that triple-double season where he was just giving an unreal effort almost every game of the season, you have to reward guys who play hard in the regular season. And that's Julius Randle. So yeah, that's a big accomplishment for him. It feels a little bit Siakam-y, where Siakam was on the second team last year. And so you worry about Randle being that guy where like maybe teams eventually figure him out and he regresses a little bit. But for now, enjoy the ride, Knicks fans. This is really, really fun. 2 second team guards. These ones are pretty easy for me. I have Damian Lillard, who's averaging nearly 29 points per game, shooting 93% of the free throw line, 39% from 3 on like incredibly high attempts as well. Just really special season for him. The stats have gone down a little bit because he's been dealing with that hamstring injury the last month or so, but again, still out of this world. And then Chris Paul is my other second team guard. Doesn't necessarily have the high level stats to back it up, but you got to look at the team here. He took a Phoenix Suns team that hadn't made the playoffs in 10 years, and he has them as the number 2, maybe number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And that is 100% Chris Paul elevating that team, probably 6 seeds by himself. And then those kind of last 2-3 seeds of meteoric rise have come from improvements to Devin Booker's defense, to Mikal Bridges' all-around game, to DeAndre Ayton's all-around game, to adding veterans like Jay Crowder and getting stuff from Cameron Payne and Dario Saric and Frank Kaminsky and Torrey Craig and all these guys pitching together. But Chris Paul, like far and away, people are making case for MVP, and he probably should be up there. But if he's not in that top 5, he definitely deserves to be rewarded as one of the top 10 players of this season. And so he is my last All NBA second team guard. All right, we get into the All NBA third team, and there were a ton of guys that I had to pick and choose from. Pretty easy center wise. Third team, I'm going with Rudy Gobert, who is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. There are a lot of highlights going around. He got dunked on last night by I don't even know the guy's name on. I don't even know what team he plays for because I'd never heard of him before. But Rudy Gobert, the reason he gets dunked on is because he tries to block every single shot that ever comes into the paint, even if he's nowhere near it. He's like working his butt off to protect that rim, and it shows in the advanced metrics. Teams do not finish well against Utah around the rim, and their entire defensive scheme is aligned to direct people towards him. And night after night, he plays heavy minutes in a position where you take a heavy beating, setting screens, boxing out, blocking shots, chasing guys out on the perimeter, just like the absolute like garbage man role that's so underappreciated. And I'm glad he's getting his shine a little bit more this season. Rudy Gobert, a fantastic season and immensely valuable, despite what the raw stats may tell you. Okay, we get a little fun here because you're playing with guys who have missed games. Just as a preface, none of the Nets make my All NBA teams. Harden and Kevin Durant are not going to reach the games threshold, and then Kyrie Irving is there and has had a spectacular season. I just can't do it based off of the absences and kind of in and out that he's taken. It just seems like a lot of his success is dependent off of these other two guys, KD and Harden, who would be MVP candidates almost any other year. And so it feels like, again, Kyrie with like the Beal, the Trae Young, along those guys, it's a lot of like stats that are inflated by his situation, quite possibly. And he's an incredible player. I couldn't bring myself to do it. And so no Nets on the All NBA teams, despite them having the 2 seed in the East. So I did kind of feel bad about that. But I will get to my forwards. First, I have Paul George as one of my forwards, averaging 23.5 points, 6.6 rebounds, 5 assists. He is shooting 42% from 3, 47% from the field, 87% from the free throw line. Great splits for him. He's had streaks this season where he's just been unable to miss. And yeah, a great bounce back season. Again, not necessarily a bounce back because he's always been this good, but he took a lot of flack for his bubble performance, and he's come back and answered it. And he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, which you really love to see. And he's had a really wonderful season, so he had to be in there. And then my other forward, I had to go with Zion Williamson, which again is a little bit. This one was a tougher one to argue because of the lack of team success, the lack of defensive ability, but just 27 points. He's shooting 61% from the field. Like it is unbelievable. The next closest terms of field goal percentage is Nikola Jokic, who's shooting 57%, so 4 percentage points lower, and that's another center. Like no one else is even close to these two guys. It's unbelievable what he does and scores at such an efficient level. You'd like to see the free throw percentage go up a little bit. You'd like to see him rebound a little bit more for his position and size. He's only around 7 rebounds a game, 4 assists per game, but he's really taken that step and become a lot more of a playmaker for the Pelicans this season. And like just a freak of nature. It's every time he's ever playing, I have to tune in at some point to see what he may do. And already in just his second season, if he's playing a full season and the Pelicans are giving him the keys earlier in the season, he's the absolute lock for a third team. But It was a bit of a back and forth here, but I'm going to go with him because he's just so damn fun to watch. Zion, his first All NBA team in his second season, not too shabby. We finished with the guards, and this guy, I wavered between putting him on the second team. I just couldn't figure out how to move Randall around. I guess I could have moved Randall down, that bumps Zion out. Then I have to figure out uh, another guard to throw in there. So I just struggled, and in the end, I stuck to my gut. And Jimmy Butler is staying on the third team, but like a guy, especially in the last month or so, has really turned it on and is having deceptively like one of the better seasons of anyone in the league. And we forget last year, everyone was saying he's a top 10 player in the league when he carried that Miami team to the finals and put on a heck of a performance. And he's starting to ramp it up again for playoff time. He's around 22 points a game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. 7 assists, a big number for him. And he is really running that team, him and Bam, um, with not much around them, to be quite honest. This year they've gotten a lot of regression from Hero, Duncan Robinson. They've gotten not a lot from Iguodala and Kendrick Nunn, like, and Goran Dragic. Like these two guys have really carried this Miami team, who will be threatening come playoff time. But like Jimmy Butler, really, really incredible. He might even sneak his way onto some people's MVP ballots at the end of this season. I guess what's holding him back is he's only played 50 games at the time of this podcast. But yeah, really incredible season for Jimmy. And he's on my All NBA third team. And the last guy, this is so tough. I had to knock out Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, DeMar DeRozan, obviously all the Nets guys, Ben Simmons, Bradley Beal, Bam Adebayo, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, all these guys all clamoring for that last spot. And maybe you bump out Zion for one of these guys too and rearrange things. But I had to go with Devin Booker as my All NBA team third, final guard. And this one,
You didn't even mention Westbrook in there.
yeah, I just think Westbrook with the injury, like the first 60% of the season, he wasn't even close. So it was tough. Yeah. But yeah, he, again, a guy you can make an argument for, especially down the stretch. Yeah, there's so many stats you could throw out there. I think I got to go with Devin Booker is the top scorer on possibly the 1 seed in the West. Like team success is a big part of that. He's actually maintained the scoring. He probably could be scoring a lot more, but he's just playing within the flow of the offense. 26 points per game, shooting 49% from the field, 34% from three, 86% from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 4.5 assists. And it's not eye-popping, the ancillary stats, but it's the scoring and the fact that he has finally bought in and become the absolute reliable clutch guy. Like it is, when the game is down to the wire, it is your top guy against my top guy. And that top guy for the Phoenix Suns is Devin Booker. And he is going head-to-head, mano-a-mano with your Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron, Giannis, KD, Joel Embiid. Like, not necessarily guarding those guys, but it's a tit for tat. And he is just an incredible creator. And I think that value in itself, it has to be there. And for the success that Phoenix has had, I just thought both Chris and Devin deserve to be there. But oh my gosh, man, like I'm ready to embrace the debate. Come at me with all of your other takes. So many guys that are deserving of a spot. And this was really, really tough. But in the end, that's what I decided to go with. So those are my 3 All NBA teams. Please let me know what you think. I'd be happy to talk about it, but that's where things sit.